At 76, she revealed the secret she carried since her wedding night. At 76, she stood in the middle of her family's living room, her frail hands clutching an old wooden box she had kept hidden for decades. Stay with me, because inside that box was the weight of a secret carried since her wedding night. Her children and grandchildren had gathered to celebrate her birthday, expecting joy and laughter, not the trembling voice that said, "Tonight, I will tell you the truth I buried the day I married your father." The tension froze every smile in the room. She looked around, her eyes glistening with both sorrow and relief, and continued, "This truth has haunted me for 56 years, and I cannot die without letting you know." The silence was unbearable. What she revealed that night would tear open old wounds, destroy illusions, and force her family to face a truth more painful than betrayal. And yet, hidden in the pain, there was also a lesson about forgiveness, dignity, and survival. Watch until the very end, because the last revelation will leave you speechless. Capítulo E. The birthday gathering the house smelled of roasted lamb, garlic, and red wine, the aromas of tradition. Stay with me, because this was not just a birthday dinner, it was the stage for truth. Her children kissed her cheeks, bringing flowers, gifts, and warm wishes. They saw only their mother, the strong woman who held the family together. None imagined the storm inside her heart. The grandchildren laughed and ran across the tiled floor, their innocence echoing against the old stone walls. Their joy was pure, but it would not last. Neighbors had been invited too, curious to join in the celebration of the widow who had lived with dignity all her life. Their presence would make the revelation even heavier. The old woman smiled politely, but her eyes kept drifting to the wooden box on the dresser. It was time, and she knew it. Her eldest daughter noticed the tension and asked softly, "Mother, are you all right?" But she only nodded and forced a smile. The clock struck 8, and the family gathered around the table for the meal. The perfect moment for truth had arrived. The old woman rose slowly, her fragile body steady with determination. Everyone turned to her, expecting a toast. She picked up the wooden box, her hands trembling. No one could guess what it contained, and with her first words, the night transformed forever. The next chapter reveals what she said. Capítulo 2. Their first words. She held the box close to her chest and whispered, "I have lived my whole life in silence. But silence is killing me. Stay with me, because this was only the beginning of her confession." The room went still. Children froze with spoons in their hands. Adults leaned closer. Neighbors whispered nervously. Her voice demanded attention. She said, "On my wedding night, something happened that I never told a soul, not even your father." Her words shook the walls of memory. Her eldest son frowned. "Mother, what are you talking about?" His confusion carried both fear and anger. She placed the box on the table, her eyes locked on it. "Inside, you will find the truth. But before I open it, you must hear me." The suspense thickened. the daughter whispered. "Why now, after so many years?" Her question trembled with anticipation. The old woman sighed deeply. "Because the weight of this secret is heavier than my own body now. I cannot die with it." Her honesty struck every heart. The grandchildren looked around, frightened by the tension they didn't understand. Their innocence made the secret even more unbearable. The neighbors whispered, sensing scandal. The air grew heavy with expectation, and then, with a trembling hand, she opened the box. The next chapter reveals what was inside. Capítulo 10. The box. Inside the wooden box lay a faded wedding photo, a blood-stained handkerchief, and a sealed letter. Stay with me, because each item told part of the hidden truth. The family gasped. The photo showed her on her wedding day, but the man beside her was not the father they knew. Shock spread across the table. Her eldest daughter whispered that isn't father. Her voice cracked in disbelief. The old woman nodded, tears falling. "No, that man was the one I was supposed to marry. But fate, or cruelty, changed everything." Her words pierced the silence. She lifted the handkerchief, stained but carefully preserved. "This blood is the reason I was forced into another marriage. It is the mark of betrayal and violence." The horror deepened. The son shouted, "Mother, what are you saying? Who was he? What happened that night?" His desperation grew louder. The neighbors leaned closer, whispering with wide eyes. The scandal was larger than any gossip they had ever heard. She placed the handkerchief down gently, her hands shaking. "This is only part of it. The rest is in the letter." Her strength began to waver. The grandchildren clutched their parents, sensing danger in the truth. Their innocence was being stolen piece by piece, and with trembling fingers she broke the seal of the letter. The next chapter reveals what it said. Capítulo 6. The letter. Her voice cracked as she read the letter aloud. "If you are reading this, it means I failed to protect you that night. Forgive me. Stay with me, because this letter was written by the man she should have married." The family gasped. The letter was old, fragile, written in hurried ink, yet the pain was fresh. Every word cut deeper than the last. She continued, "They forced you to another man, but my love for you has never died. I bled that night fighting for you, but they tore us apart." The confession was unbearable. The wife's daughter cried, "Mother, who are they? Who did this to you?" Her voice was desperate for answers. The old woman closed her eyes. "My family, my father, my brothers. They sold me to your father to protect our honor." Her tears fell like acid. The eldest son stood furious. "You mean our family was built on a lie, on violence?" His fists clenched in rage. The neighbors gasped, crossing themselves, shocked by the scandal. Their whispers burned like fire in the room. The grandchildren began to cry, frightened by the chaos. Their innocence was shattered by the revelation. The old woman dropped the letter, her body trembling. "This is the truth I carried for 56 years. Her confession echoed through the silence, and then she whispered, "But there is still more you don't know." The next chapter reveals the second secret. Capítulo 5. The family's shock. The room felt like it had lost its air, every breath heavy with disbelief. Stay with me, because the family's reaction would tear the night apart. Her eldest son shouted, "All these years you let us believe in a lie. You let us honor a man who stole you." His voice was thunder in the room. The daughter clutched her mother's arm, trembling. "You should have told us. We could have carried this pain with you." Her tears blurred the truth. The old woman shook her head. "You were children. I wanted you to grow without shame. I chose silence to protect you." Her words begged for understanding. The neighbors whispered louder, scandalous eyes piercing through the family like knives. The shame grew heavier than the secret itself. The grandchildren cried, confused and scared, asking their parents why everyone was yelling. Their innocence was once again the cruelest casualty. The old woman said, "The silence destroyed me, but it also built the walls around you. Those walls are breaking tonight." Her confession left no return. The daughter whispered, "What else don't we know, Mother?" Her question held both fear and longing. The old woman closed her eyes as if summoning strength from the depths of her soul. Her silence was more terrifying than her words. And then she whispered, "There was a child." The next chapter reveals who that child was. Capítulo, the hidden child. The words froze everyone in the room. There was a child. Stay with me, because this secret would split the family in two. The eldest son shouted, "A child? What child?" His voice cracked between rage and terror. The old woman's tears flowed. "The man I loved. The one I was supposed to marry. I was already carrying his child." Her words fell like stones on the table. The daughter gasped, covering her mouth. "You mean we had a sibling all this time?" Her disbelief filled the room. The neighbors leaned forward, eyes wide with scandal. The tension turned suffocating. The old woman whispered, "They took the baby away. They said it would bring shame to the family. I never saw him again." Her pain was bottomless. The grandchildren asked innocently, "Where is he now?" Their question stabbed deeper than any accusation. The eldest son clenched his fists, furious. "So we lived our lives while our brother, your first child, was erased from existence." His anger became unbearable. The old woman sobbed, "I searched for him for years, but he was lost to me. That is why I kept this box. It was the only proof he existed." Her grief was a river without end, and then she whispered, "But I believe he is still alive." The next chapter reveals what she discovered about him. Capítulo the search. The old woman steadied herself, clutching the table as if her legs could no longer carry the weight of memory. Stay with me, because her revelation would ignite both hope and fury. She said, "For decades I searched for him in silence. I asked priests, midwives, even neighbors who vanished mysteriously afterwards. I found only whispers. Her voice carried both determination and sorrow. The daughter whispered, "And what did you discover, mother?" Her fear mixed with longing. The old woman said, "5 years ago, a letter arrived with no sender. It said, 'Your son lives. He knows the truth.'" Her words struck like lightning. The eldest son exploded, "And you told no one. You kept this from us too." His rage rattled the walls. The neighbors gasped, their whispers now a chorus of scandal. The story was spreading beyond the walls already. The old woman clutched her chest. "I was afraid. Afraid that telling you would destroy the life you had. Afraid you would hate me." Her honesty cut deeper than lies. The daughter wept. "Mother, don't you see? The hate comes from silence, not from truth." Her tears pleaded for reconciliation. The grandchildren stared wide-eyed, asking, "Does that mean we have another uncle?" Their innocence carried the heaviest truth. The old woman looked at them and whispered, "Yes. And he may even be closer than you think." The next chapter reveals what she meant by those words. Capítulo 8, the stranger to the old woman's eyes darted to the back of the room, where a man stood quietly, hidden in the shadows. Stay with me, because this was the moment the past walked into the present. The guests turned, gasping as the man stepped forward. His features sharp, his eyes burning with both anger and recognition. The silence cracked like thunder. He said, "I came here because I could no longer stay in the dark. I am the son you lost." The words shattered every soul in the room. The daughter covered her mouth, her knees buckling. No, this cannot be true. Her disbelief was louder than her words. The eldest son roared, "You dare come here and claim our blood." His rage turned the room into fire. The old woman collapsed into a chair, her hands trembling. "It's him. I know it's him. My son." Her voice carried decades of longing. The neighbors whispered in frenzy, scandal exploding through every word. The family's reputation was bleeding out. The grandchildren clung to their parents, confused by the sight of a man who looked like them yet was a stranger. Their innocence cracked once again. The stranger stepped closer, his voice breaking. "I didn't come for revenge. I came for truth." His presence was unbearable. And with that, the family realized the night had only begun. The next chapter reveals his story. Capítulo 8, the lost son's story. The stranger took a deep breath, his voice heavy with years of silence. Stay with me, because his story would tear apart everything they believed. He said, "I was raised by strangers. They told me my mother had abandoned me. They told me I was unwanted." His pain bled through every word. The daughter wept. "That's not true. She never abandoned you." Her defense trembled with desperation. The old woman sobbed, "I searched for you every day of my life. I prayed for you every night. Forgive me." Her tears were rivers of regret. The son clenched his fists. "Forgiveness. While I lived with lies, you lived with silence." His fury cracked the fragile air. The eldest brother shouted, "You don't belong here. You are not part of this family." His rejection burned hotter than fire. The lost son looked at him and whispered, "Blood doesn't ask permission. It just exists." His words cut deeper than a blade. The neighbors whispered again, scandal feeding their hunger. The family's shame was now public property. The grandchildren asked softly, "Is he really our uncle?" Their innocent voices shattered the room's defenses. And then the lost son revealed, "There's more you don't know." The next chapter uncovers his secret. Capitulo. The second secret, the lost son's eyes darkened as he looked at the family. "Stay with me," because his next words would change everything again. He said, "The man who raised me was your father's brother." The room gasped in disbelief. The daughter screamed, "That means you grew up inside our own family's shadow." Her words shook like thunder. The old woman clutched her chest. "My God. They never let you go far. They kept you close, but hidden." Her tears burned with rage. The eldest son shouted, "Why didn't you come sooner? Why tonight?" His fury was desperate to find sense in chaos. The lost son answered, "Because he told me to wait until she spoke." He knew the day would come. His calm was terrifying. The wife's daughter whispered, "So all these years you lived knowing who we were?" Her voice trembled with betrayal. The lost son nodded slowly. "Yes, I watched from afar. I was the shadow at weddings, the face in the market you never recognized." His confession pierced their hearts. The grandchildren cried, hiding in their mother's arms. Their innocence was now fully gone. And with that truth, the family realized betrayal was deeper than they ever imagined. The next chapter reveals the confrontation that followed. Capitulo Shiyi, the confrontation. The eldest son lunged toward the stranger, fists shaking with fury. "Stay with me," because violence now threatened to consume them all. The daughter screamed, pulling him back. "Stop. He is our blood, whether you want it or not." Her tears flooded the room. The old woman shouted louder than she had in years, "Enough. This is not the night for fists. It is the night for truth." Her authority shook the walls. The lost son's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't come to fight. I came to ask why I was never allowed to belong." His question split the silence in half. The eldest son hissed, "Because you should never have existed." His cruelty burned deeper than truth. The old woman slapped him across the face. "Never say that again. He is my son. He is your brother." Her voice was thunder. The neighbors gasped, scandal becoming spectacle. Their whispers cut like daggers. The grandchildren stared at the chaos, their innocence drowned in screams. The family's wounds were now scars carved in front of them. The daughter whispered, "If we don't stop this, we will destroy what's left of us." Her plea was fragile but firm, and with those words the family faced a choice: break forever or try to heal. The next chapter reveals their decision. Capitulo Shara, the choice. The old woman stood tall, despite her frail body. Stay with me, because her choice would decide the family's fate. She said, "We cannot erase the past. but we can choose what we do with the truth. Her voice carried both sorrow and strength. The eldest son spat, "I will never accept him." His rage was relentless. The daughter shouted, "Then you will live in hate forever." Her courage burned brighter than fear. The lost son bowed his head. "I did not come to be accepted. I came to be known. That is enough." His humility silenced the room. The old woman wept. "No, it is not enough. You deserve a family, even if it takes my last breath to give it to you." Her tears broke every heart. The grandchildren whispered, "We want him here." Their innocence became the bridge. The neighbors whispered prayers, shocked into silence for the first time that night. Even scandal bowed to truth. The eldest son clenched his fists, but for once he said nothing. His silence was the beginning of surrender, and with that silence, the family's path turned toward healing. The next chapter reveals how they began to mend. Capítulo 13, the first step the daughter reached across the table, placing her hand on the lost son's. Stay with me, because this was the first act of reconciliation. She whispered, "Brother, I don't know you, but I want to." Her voice trembled with hope. The lost son's tears fell freely as he nodded. His heart began to heal. The eldest son turned away, his pride choking him, but his silence betrayed his weakening resistance. The walls were crumbling. The grandchildren smiled faintly, sensing a fragile peace forming. Their innocence restored light. The neighbors watched, moved despite their hunger for gossip. Even they saw the power of truth. The lost son whispered, "Maybe blood is not just pain. Maybe it can also be healing." His hope lit the air. The old woman nodded. "Yes. Tonight, pain becomes the seed of peace." Her words planted unity. And in that fragile peace, the family took its first real step toward healing. The next chapter reveals how they sealed it. Capítulo 14. T embraced the old woman Rose, trembling, and embraced her lost son for the first time. Stay with me, because this embrace was decades overdue. Tears poured down her face, soaking his shirt. "I lost you once. I will never lose you again." Her vow was eternal. The lost son clung to her, whispering, "I forgive you, mother." His forgiveness broke the curse of silence. The daughter joined them, wrapping her arms around her brother. Her courage became a bridge. The grandchildren ran to join the embrace, their laughter cutting through the sorrow. Their innocence sealed the bond. The eldest son stood apart, his fists trembling, torn between rage and surrender. His silence was heavier than words. The neighbors wiped tears from their eyes, forgetting gossip for once. They witnessed healing beyond scandal. The old woman whispered, "This is family. Not perfect, not pure, but real." Her wisdom crowned the moment. The lost son wept harder, holding them tight. Decades of absence ended in that embrace. And with that, the family tasted forgiveness for the first time. The next chapter reveals how they carried it forward. Capitulo Shawu, the last wish. The night ended with the old woman sitting at the table once more, her family around her. Stay with me, because this was her final wish. She raised her glass of wine, her hands shaken. I do not ask for perfection. I ask only for truth and dignity. Her voice was both fragile and strong. The daughter raised her glass too. For truth, her courage carried the moment. The lost son whispered, for family, his forgiveness made the toast whole. The grandchildren shouted, for love. Their innocence crowned the night with joy. The eldest son hesitated, then slowly lifted his glass. For peace, his surrender was the loudest act of all. The old woman smiled through her tears. This is all I wanted, that before I die, my children would know the truth, and that truth would not destroy us. Her final gift was peace. The neighbors bowed their heads, touched beyond words. Even scandal had been silenced. The candle on the table burned low, flickering like her fading strength. Her secret was no longer hers alone, and as dawn broke, the family remained together, broken, scarred, but united in truth. Her last wish had been fulfilled.